Hello, everyone. Welcome to Faculty Spotlights for the College of Professional Psychology at the Chicago School. I'm Lance Garrison, Dean of the College, and I am joined today by Dr. Garrett Sidor, clinical psychology faculty member at our Chicago PsyD Clinical Psychology program. Welcome, Dr. Sidor.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about your background and how you became a faculty member, clinical faculty member at the Chicago School.
Well, I think the easiest way to explain how I became a faculty member here is to first acknowledge that I'm an alumni of this program.
Awesome.
And went through it, really enjoyed my experience through my classes and training in the program, combined with my internship. I really developed a passion for training, education, and sort of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so after graduation, spending some time doing some clinical work, I just happened to stumble across the opportunity. I was always interested in teaching and always thought it would be something I would do. And then a former faculty member from the program who I had previously TA'd for reached out to me about an adjunct position. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, absolutely. And if there's anything more permanent available, let me know because I'd be interested in that too. And it just so happened that there was going to be an opening in the training department, which I ended up applying to and thankfully got. And now it's been really great. I've been in this position for I'm in my 5th year now.
Yeah.
And it's just been such a privilege to be a part of the program that I went through and get to sort of provide part of that experience that I had.
Yeah, the stars aligned, huh?
Yeah, they did. They did.
In terms of teaching or research or clinical practice, what are you most passionate about these days?
Um, well, I would say, on the research side of things, my training role doesn't afford me too much opportunity. I will
Sure.
sort of act on committees for some dissertations as a reader, but
Hmm.
as far as sort of leading some of those projects, I don't really have too much opportunity to do that. But in terms of clinical work, my passion is in family and relationship work, couples work,
Yeah.
as you might call it. I teach and am the course lead for the basic intervention systems course, which kind of is an introduction on how to approach that type of work.
Yeah.
But working with relationships and working with families has always been sort of the thing that, or the area of the field that drew the most attention for me.
Yeah.
I find really rewarding and really dynamic to do work that involves more than one person in the room. Um, and then, the other part would be training. I'm extremely passionate about training future psychologists. I think, the work that we do is such a nuanced type of work. There's this blend of personal and professional development that's required. And because of that, I think it takes a very specific type of intervention and guidance to
Hmm.
craft and sort of lead a student through their training experience and help them get to where they want to go to ultimately become, a competent and good practitioner. And I valued so much the training that I got and felt like it was so impactful for me.
Yeah.
Um, not just professionally, but personally. And it's really rewarding to be a part of that process.
Yeah. There's two kind of broad components of the clinical program, right? There's kind of the didactic classroom based, and then there's the practical clinical training based. They're both absolutely critical. But the thing about the practical part, the clinical training part, is that makes it so critical. That's where they begin to take the kind of the didactic knowledge that they've developed about the field and make it real. And that gets very complicated very quickly
Yeah.
sometimes, right?
Yeah, and there's a translation aspect to it where
Yeah.
you have to be able to take what you're reading and understand how that then, like you're saying, looks in practice. And
Yeah.
then at the same time, you also have to take what you're doing and then also be able to translate that into some sort
Mhm.
of clinical language and theoretical understanding. And that's a very interesting sort of skill to develop.
Yeah, I definitely remember from my time as a student, I'm thinking I knew what it was going to be like when I started to sit in the room with other people. Because you go through the classroom part and you're like, okay, I think I got this. And then you sit with someone and it's like, oh, wait a minute. There's a gap there, right? It's not just one for one. You can't watch a
Yeah.
video and then, or go through a therapy class and then expect to be able to just sit in the room. There's this really kind of critical translation piece and developmental professional progression piece that's involved in the training aspects of the program.
Yeah. And a tactical improvisation
Yes,
that
yes,
can be
yes, yes.
required. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to be able to think on your seat.
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
Um, well, and some of this may seem obvious, but I'm curious about your perspective on it. How do you see the work you do having an impact on the students? Obviously, there's that translation piece, but maybe talk a little bit about the role of clinical training and the impact that you feel like that has on students, and then extend that into the impact that you think that has on the community.
Oh, sure, sure. Um, well, so like you were saying, without being too on the nose, the work that we do in the training department certainly directly influences the students in a number of
Yeah,
ways. Um, I would say we're maybe a little bit of catalysts for a lot of the skills that they're building, because we are emphasizing and assessing some of that practical application
right.
of the knowledge and skills that they're learning. I think we serve as gatekeepers as well. And sometimes have to provide students with difficult feedback around like where their growth edges are.
Yeah,
And then at the same time, challenge students to go into areas of discomfort
yeah,
in order to facilitate growth.
yeah,
Um, I think also one of the biggest parts of our job too, that I think may go sort of fly under the radar is an onboarding to the profession. Because for psychology specifically, I think there is a certain level of professionalism, professional skills, and comportment that maybe extends beyond what someone might imagine in the average workspace.
yeah,
Um, and so I think the places where we get to have touch points with students, I think we also function as guides to help them understand where they need to be in that regard, and also role models
yeah,
to embody the things that we're trying to have them practice as well. So uh, I think those are some of the main areas where we would sort of create the most impact. And then you said, how does that then in turn impact the community? Well, a lot of our students are going out and training at sites within, at the very least, our local community, and a little bit beyond. And one, it's impacting the community because it's providing in a lot of cases, affordable services and access to services that a lot of
yeah,
populations aren't getting. Um, and then secondly, it's giving students really important um, experiences where they can then contextualize different types of settings and different types of implications around the populations or settings that they're working in,
hmm,
which reflects back into the community when they go out into the workforce. Because uh, mental health is such an interesting thing, because what is pathological in one context isn't always pathological in
right,
another.
yeah,
And without, right, engaging in the community, coming back and then going back out, it's a very hard thing to understand and see.
yeah,
So the more that the student has the opportunity to engage with local communities, or communities in general, the more they're then able to better serve them once they go out in the workforce.
yeah, 100% agree. And you said something that I think is worth reiterating. It's about the process of growth being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I think that is one of the most challenging aspects of getting a degree in the mental health field, and in particular in clinical psychology, because it does kind of put you up against yourself a lot of times,
absolutely.
right? You've got to be willing to open yourself up to the reflection of others, faculty, training directors, training personnel, and it's all geared, as uncomfortable as it is, it's geared toward growth. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes it's easy to forget. I know I do myself, particularly in the middle of something challenging, that the most profound, enduring, and meaningful growth that we go through or endure sometimes is just really difficult. It's painful sometimes, but
Absolutely.
the end product of that is more often than not worth the challenge that you experienced in the midst of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think makes the Chicago School a great place to pursue a degree? Is what makes it unique, kind of in the space of clinical psychology programs?
Um, I'll speak for my particular program first.
Yeah.
Um, I think for my particular program, I think the faculty are incredible. I had the privilege when I was in the program of working with a lot of the faculty or taking classes with a lot of the faculty that I now work with.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been interesting shifting in my relationship to them. But when I think back on what my experience was in the program, and when I listen to students now talk about their experience in the program, the first thing that comes up are the specific faculty that they've taken classes with and who's made the biggest impact on them.
Yeah.
And I, I would say every core faculty member's name has come up in some conversation or another.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing to say about our program. That, no matter which core faculty you're taking a class with, you are getting something strong and
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
Um, at a broader level, one of the things that I always valued about the Chicago School was the emphasis on multiculturalism and diversity.
Hmm.
I think that's such a big part of what you were talking about in terms of uh, not just knowing the material, not just developing the skills and practicing it, but also understanding ourselves and what we're bringing into our own work
Hmm.
um, is such a big part of that, as much as understanding our clients and what they're bringing in. And so I think, you see those themes and those sort of cultural contexts embedded in all of the curriculum and all of the classes and all the topics that you end up talking about. And I think that's an invaluable piece of the education you get here.
Yeah, I think I keep saying this over and over, but I think the faculty are really kind of the heart of the program, and you've
Yeah.
got a pretty special group there at the Chicago Clinical Program. You said something that you're working with some of the faculty that you had for class, and I don't recall how long you've been out of school, but that's one of the kind of really cool things about the faculty there is that you've got some relatively new folks,
Yeah.
teaching in the program, but there's a fairly large contingent of faculty that have been there for a couple decades or more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's this like really good, diverse, eclectic um, set of viewpoints and perspectives and experiences and theoretical orientation that just meshes really well as a faculty group that I think is just awesome for students going through the program.
I agree with you. It is that way. And like you said, right, those differing views and dynamic interactions, um, I wouldn't say they're uncomfortable, but
Hmm.
there's mild amounts of friction, right, that then
Sure.
ultimately lead to innovation, great ideas, advocacy, that, yeah, I think really characterizes a strong part of our faculty team.
What would you say to a student? What advice would you have for a student out there that's thinking about going into clinical psychology as a career? What advice would you give them as they start to look at the possibility of joining a program like yours?
Um, I would say uh, come in ready to challenge yourself.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I find, you know, graduate school, you get a lot out of it if you put a
Hmm.
lot into it.
Yeah.
And so you got to come in ready to not just challenge yourself to do the work, but challenge yourself to reflect in a way where you're being curious about yourself and asking yourself questions about maybe some
Yeah.
things that I thought, or maybe some certain perspectives I have um, aren't necessarily the whole picture or only part of the picture. And you got to be open to ideas.
Yeah.
Um, the other piece of advice I would say is if you're considering a higher educational degree, you're likely a high achieving person in some shape or form.
Hmm.
And um, in a program like this, you're going to be doing a lot of things that you've never done before. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, right? You are going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, you got to lean into that and you got to ask for help because that's what the program's for, is for learning.
Yeah.
And you can't learn about, where you need to go or what you're doing or what you need to improve if you don't allow people to see it. And sometimes
Right.
that can be really hard. But this is a place this is the place for that.
Yeah. It's a good space
So
for that, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So those are the two pieces of advice I would give to students or prospective students thinking about pursuing a program like this.
Yeah. Be ready for and open to growth is kind of the core message there, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And know that it's going to be challenging along the way, but all for good things.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, Dr. Sidor, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you as well. I really enjoyed it too.